My name is Josué Ortiz, and I am a member of the Dole Institute Student Advisory Board, the official student group of the Institute. The Student Advisory Board is a bipartisan group whose members can access many great opportunities to their involvement with this institute, including volunteering at our programs, networking with our special guests. If you are a student and would like to join, please contact us at dolesab@ku.edu or speaking with a student worker after the program. A video of today's program will be available in our YouTube channel soon. You can also access videos of past programs by visiting our YouTube channel at any time. A loop hearing system is available to use if you have a T-coil hearing aid. We also have a limited number of listening devices. If you have questions about the loop system or if at any time during the program you have difficulty hearing, please alert one of our staff members or student volunteers. After the program, we will have some time for audience to ask questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand and a student worker with a microphone will come to you. Please stand if you are able and ask one brief question. The Dole Institute's mission is to foster civil and respectful discussion around important and often difficult topics. Please phrase your questions with this in mind. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you to please turn off your cell phones. And now, please join me in welcoming Senior Associate Director, Dr. Barbara Ballard.
Thank you very much. It is always nice when we have our students do you welcome. We're delighted to see you this evening, so I'll say good morning and welcome. Good morning, I should say, good evening, and welcome to the Dole Institute of Politics. Tonight's interview will be conducted by the director of the Dole Institute, Bill Lacey, and is co-sponsored by Kansas Public Radio and KU's William Allen White School of Journalism and Mass Communications. I also hope that you'll join us next Thursday, October the 14th, when we host former U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Dan Glickman. This year marks 25 years since Senator Bob Dole left the U.S. Senate. And in honor of this important milestone, we are honored to host the University Daily Kansan editors who put together a 16-page feature on Senator Dole and his life in public service. When you read it, you will be amazed. Joining us tonight are Stef Manchen, editor of the UDK, Carly Johnson, managing editor of the UDK, and Blake Ullman, news editor of the UDK. Stef is a senior from the suburbs of Chicago who is studying journalism on the news and information track. Carly is also a senior studying journalism on the news and information track and is currently finishing her capstone at KMBC Channel 9 TV. Blake is from Wichita, Kansas, and is double majoring in political science and journalism. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to recognize Rob Carworth, the general manager and news advisor at the Kansan, and Professor Jared Berenzin, who helped the students with the design. If there are others here tonight who were involved in the creation of this special edition on Senator Dole, please stand so we can recognize your incredible efforts. Thank you very much. A lot of times that we say stand, people hesitate, but thank you so much for standing. Now, would you please join me in welcoming these three exceptional students and Bill Lacey, our director.
Barbara, you and I are going to have a talk after the program time. I want to thank everyone for coming out to this very important program. Rob, who's the faculty advisor to the University Daily Kansan, approached us this spring and said that they would like to do this project. And we talked it over. It was a pretty big commitment of our archival team But it was a wonderful collaboration, and I want to thank the School of Journalism and the UDK. It's turned out great, and everybody, if you haven't picked up a copy, there are copies available as you leave tonight. It's really a wonderful product. So let's get to our discussion. I want to ask Steph, Carly, and Blake, and what we'll do tonight, guys, to make this really simple is we'll just go in order, and then we'll go in reverse order, okay? So Steph, we'll start with you on this one. Let's start with some personal information. Tell us about your class, what class you're in, although I think Barbara mentioned that, your hometown, but more importantly, why are you studying journalism, and how did you come to that decision?
Sure. I am Stef Manchen. I'm the editor of the Kansan. I am a senior at KU, and I'm from Riverside, Illinois, which is the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm studying journalism because I want to give people who might not normally have a voice and a platform to share their stories.
Yeah, I'm Blake Ullman. I'm the news editor at the University Daily Kansan. I am a sophomore double majoring in political science and journalism. And I'm studying journalism and working for the Kansan because I've seen how important the press is in recent years and want to be a part of the effort in telling the stories and keeping communities informed and bettering the community.
I'm Carly Johnson. I'm a senior at KU. I am the managing editor of the UDK. I am from a small town in Colorado called Blackhawk, and I'm studying journalism along with a minor in sport management. And I decided to choose journalism just because, well, one, I love getting to talk to people. I love talking. So great path for me there. And just really getting to give a voice to people and be creative with it at the same time and create new stories.
Okay, we'll start, Carly, with you on this one. When you first heard about this project, and I want to get your thoughts too, guys, but when you first heard about this project, about somebody who served in the Senate and whose service had concluded in the Senate before you were born, how did that affect you? I mean, that must have been really incredible.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I did not really know much about Senator Dole before I came here. I knew that buildings were named after him from KU, so I knew he must be important. But when we were given this opportunity, I was really excited to learn more about someone who must be influential. And it was during the summertime when we first came up with this idea, so had a little bit of free time and thought, why not?
Okay, Blake?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of in the same boat. I did not know a ton about Bob Dole. I knew a little bit because I'd covered and written stories about his cancer diagnosis the previous semester. I was one of the people doing coverage on that. So I knew a little bit about him, but kind of sharing the same thing. I did not know exactly who he was, except for the fact that I had a class in the Dole Center on Sunnyside. So again, I knew he must have been somewhat important, but you also, the Dole Institute, and I'd heard of him before, so.
Yeah, I think we were very fortunate to get to dive into these archives, and we had Audrey and other people's help in getting the photos that you see in the program. And I think it was a bit daunting, which I talked with Audrey about at dinner, to be college students. And I mean, I got to talk to Senator Dole and interview him, and talking to this person who has had a career of his stature. And me as a college student, I was like, why do I have the authority to talk to you and ask you these questions? But it was very impactful, and I learned a lot. And anytime I said a person of your caliber and the career you've had, he was like, nope, that's not. He just shut all the positive things I had to say about him down and brought him back to my level, which I thought was very empowering, because I was nervous to talk to him. And that was the whole point of the project, was to make it, he was a KU student. He was in our same shoes, and he worked his way up to the position that he is, and that's something we're all capable of doing. So I thought that was very, very interesting.
I have to ask you a follow-up, Steph.
Okay.
Bob Dole is known as someone with an extraordinary sense of humor.
Yes.
Did he crack any jokes?
He was cracking jokes, and I was like, okay, we're straying from the interview, and it was a very long interview, but it was awesome, and he got to express his, sense of humor, and it was really cool to have him be cracking jokes, because then that made me more at ease, so it was very nice. He's a very nice person.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, Steph, we'll start with you on this one. Can you describe your role on this piece that you guys have just published?
So Carly and I kind of collaborated on who was going to write each story. And so I wrote the editor's note, obviously. It's in the first page. And we kind of made sure everybody was set up to do the research that they did. And if they couldn't come to the Dole Institute because they were, at summer or vacationing at home, we actually got to Zoom with the Dole Institute, which was very cool and helpful in the times that we're in with the pandemic and such. But I got to sit down with Senator Dole and ask him a variety of questions. It was very interesting to learn about his time in the Senate and, why he's so passionate about politics and the Dole Institute. And he continued to encourage me to tell people to come to the Dole Institute. So that's what I'm going to continue my message from this, project is to continue to come to the Dole Institute.
Okay, Blake?
Yeah, definitely. So I was a little bit less involved in the planning stages as these guys were, but I was obviously someone who collaborated with them a lot when it came to working with people who were going to be writing these stories and making sure that people kind of knew what was happening and communicating it down to the reporters on my team. I would say probably my biggest role was I wrote the story about his time in the House and got the chance to come to the archives. I actually came to the archives twice, once with Carly, and we went and kind of talked through how we would collaborate with the archives to make sure that what we were reporting in this wasn't just, we were using primary sources from the archives. Since, I'll echo, I know Stef mentioned it earlier, but the archives are certainly an incredibly vast place for information here. Just seeing it in person, there's an insane number of boxes. But, we were also lucky enough to work with the head archivist here. She was incredibly helpful in getting us set up and working with us, making sure that we had what we needed and everything like that.
I just want to mention that the article that I wrote for the story was my first byline ever. I am more of an editor, not a writer, so this was definitely a new experience for me, but it just shows that editors can be writers as well. I was also one of the point people for this project. I kind of helped bring everything to life. I was in charge of a lot of the collaboration between reporters, myself, and then going to Rob. I helped write a lot of the headlines, kind of came up with ideas for visuals, and just kind of helped communicate with everyone to make sure that everything was flowing smoothly along this process. And then I wrote one of the stories as well.
And which story did you write?
I wrote the one about Dole deciding to run for president and actually being one of the vice presidential candidates as well.
Yeah, okay, very good. How many students worked on this effort, roughly, guys, and what did they think about this effort? Carly, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, it was really hard because it was during the summertime and we had been a whole year of Zoom. I was still kind of putting my toes in the water a little bit because I had just been assigned to my role as managing editor. Before that, I was copy chief, so I wasn't too sure about this. I didn't know how I was going to be able to handle this level of authority a little bit. I didn't even know what some of our reporters looked like because everything was over Zoom or just text or Slack message. But I think we did a really good job, and I think most of our reporters were just very excited to have a physical piece of paper that has their name on it. We did tons and tons of digital and online stuff last year, and it's all a great work, but there's something different about having that actual piece of paper where you can hold it up and say, look, I did this. You don't have to pull out your laptop, open it up, and say, look, I did this. So I think all of our reporters were extremely eager to do something, and it gave us all just a little, it was a different experience because we did have to research. We did have to communicate with a lot of people who are extremely knowledgeable about this stuff. We had to go out and find sources. We had to go and find visuals. It took a lot of work, and so I think it tested us a lot, but it gave all of us extremely great opportunities and real-world experience that I think some of us hadn't had yet.
I'm sorry if you said this, I missed it, but about how many students worked on this project?
I want to say
10 to 15.
12, 10, 12,
10,
Yeah.
15.
Okay, okay. Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I would say 10 to 15-ish. I know it was very much something that was a process as we started working on this kind of at the same time as we were getting into the hang of things for the summer. So that was definitely something that was a unique situation to navigate. And then also dealing with covering the KU campus where, you know, of maybe the like 6 reporters we had on the staff, maybe 2 of us were actually in Lawrence. So it was definitely an interesting time trying to coordinate both daily news coverage and then this special section. But I will say that people did a great job, and it obviously, I may be biased, but I think it turned out well.
I think something that's very important to note within this section is our staff came together in a time that was very hard for us to come together over Zoom and not being in a newsroom and not having been in a newsroom for a year. We had people who, as Carly hinted at, don't typically write for the Kansan, but have another role within the Kansan contributing to this project. Nathan Swaffer, who is our sports editor, contributed to a piece. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head what the headline was, but he typically writes sports, and he runs the sports section. And for him to have been so willing and eager to write a story. Oh, you had the college piece, correct? Yeah, the college, Dole's college days. That was Nathan's piece. It was really exciting for me to see, and it made me really happy that we have a staff full of people who are eager to do journalism in whatever capacity, even if it's not their typical role. So that was very exciting for me, and yeah.
Okay.
Can
go
I
ahead.
add something?
Yeah.
I also just want to point out we had one designer for this whole entire thing. Matthew was so talented, and I don't think he got enough credit for this. Just phenomenal work, and usually it takes countless amount of people to design something like this, and he did it all by himself with the help of Rob and Jerry, obviously. But having just one designer for a project like this is crazy. So I want to make sure we give him a lot of props as well.
Okay. Now, the 3 of you have come of age at a time in politics where Washington is extremely polarized, hyper-partisan, and then you see a piece like this, and I don't know how many of you have had a chance to look through it yet, but if you look on page 3, there is an article authored by the President of the United States. What did that tell you guys about how things are different now than they were back when President Biden and Senator Dole were in the Senate together?
Yeah, I had no idea that was happening, and when Rob told us that we were getting a letter from the president, I was like, the current U.S. president? Okay. We're sharing a byline with the president. So that was very intimidating. Again, this was a very intimidating process as a whole. But I think it just highlighted how important Senator Dole is and his career was, and how important this project was as a whole. It's not every day college students are sharing a piece with the president. So I thought it's something to hold on to, and I'm very happy that it is a print edition, because that was another thing that was very important to me, was we stopped printing the Kansan papers because of the pandemic, and this is our first printed edition since the pandemic. So to give our staff and authors, a printed edition with their name on it was very important to me, and I thought it turned out very nicely.
Yeah, definitely. I know I'd been working at the Kansan for about a year. I probably have like 70 bylines, probably, but this is the first one actually on a piece of paper. So certainly exciting as well. Carly and I can share that. But yeah, it was certainly interesting, kind of as you dove into the archives and looking at everything, that, when I first heard that President Biden was going to be writing a letter for this, I was a bit confused, but it starts making sense. They were in the Senate at the same time. They were obviously close friends. I know President Biden just recently visited Senator Dole after his diagnosis. And so, but yeah, it was somewhat strange looking at that and then also looking at it today and seeing that something like that might not happen today, but it was definitely something cool to see, as there's two people who were both very committed to working across the aisle.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the letter, it shows their relationship they really had. It's frankly emotional. I mean, it shows just how the relationships you form, whether you're with someone, against someone, and frankly, like you mentioned, Bill, I don't know if that really is something that can happen today. I think politics have definitely become so divided. I don't know if someone in the future would ever write a letter like this about their opponent, I guess you would say. So it was pretty inspiring to see, and it kind of taught a lesson a little bit in a way to kind of put down your odds against you at times and realize when things truly do count. And in a section that's this special that really highlights the importance of Senator Dole, that we can come together and do something, together as a team to kind of create something special. And I think that's what Biden did in his letter and throughout their time in the Senate together. It was something that I was very proud to have been a part of as well on this project.
Okay. Does one of you know exactly how this came about? Because I think that'd be an interesting story too.
Well, I know Rob, one of our KU alums, Jerry Seib, who works for the White House. I don't know exactly what his role is, but Jerry Seib was very helpful in getting Biden to write a letter. But I know Biden did not hesitate at all. I mean, he was the first one to meet our deadline, so obviously he was willing. So it shows that he must have been willing to write this piece. But it also, kind of just to plug KU a little bit, it just shows how great of a community we have to be able to ask people for favors like this and being so responsive. It's just great having this network of people to make current students' work that much better.
Yeah, Jerry is very close to the White House, and many of you may know this because he's a correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. And the president was here. I think he recounts this in his article, but he was here, I think, in 2007. And I remember the first version. I don't usually talk during these things, but I have to share this with you. The first version came back from Jerry, and Jerry and I know each other, and some of you may have seen Jerry. Jerry's been part of our programs here, part of our post-election conference and everything. So the letter comes back from Jerry, and the president said that he was there in 2008, but he wasn't. It was 2007. And so I said that to Jerry, and so Jerry's response in an email was, "You want me to tell the president he was wrong?" And I said, "I don't know how you're going to do it, Jerry, but I think the White House would appreciate you correcting that date than publishing one that is incorrect." So it was extraordinary that Jerry was able to help on this. Carly, I'll start with you on this, but what would you say to you personally was the highlight of working on this project?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, first, just getting to work with all of our reporters and these people sitting here right now, and Rob and Jerry in the back in the audience, I hadn't really been extremely involved with the Kansan yet. I had done a lot kind of like on the back end, but this was my first thing kind of stepping up and being more of a face for the Kansan. So getting to just meet and get to know all the everyone through this project and become more familiar with the Dole Institute as well was amazing. But the other highlight, I think, is just getting to look at all of the pictures that we had. I mean, the pictures that we chose for this section were very, very carefully crafted, and it was extremely hard for us to choose which pictures would fit because there were so many, and just I mean, most of them were taken on film and stuff. It just kind of puts you back in that time a little bit. It makes you reflect and look at things from a different perspective, I guess.
That's a great point. I hadn't even thought about you guys looking at it and saying, oh my goodness, these pictures are actually taken with an old-timey camera on film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blake?
Yeah, for sure. I would say the biggest highlight was probably looking through the archives, because just in the way that the pictures do take you back and kind of put you in the scene. And as you mentioned, the old-timey camera, I know our visuals editor must have loved it. But, but in the same way that the pictures go and put you back in a time, you know, well before you were born, the archives tell a great story. I know they talked about how they curate the archives, and it's just straight from the Senate office to here. But it really puts you back in a time, you know, maybe 40 years ago. I know one of the boxes I was looking through was talking about the Great Society programs and like Medicare, Social Security. Another one was talking about the original formation of food stamps. And then obviously there's multiple boxes on the Civil Rights Movement and the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. But it's incredibly cool because you get to see a little bit different of a side of Washington than you would see just in the press. You know, you get to see correspondence between Dole's office and people writing about these things. You get to see what people wrote about them at the time, which was shocking at times. But then aside from that, just working with this team and putting it together, I would say was cool. I know we had many conversations about putting it together between the three of us, Rob, the team as a whole. So, yeah.
I think it's important to note that, as these two kind of hinted at, we came into our positions in May, and Rob was like, we're doing this project, and we were like, okay, and we jumped right in, and it never really stopped until like right now. Here we are, and we're talking about it, and I think for a while we were like, are we ever gonna see the finished product? And it's very exciting that we do have this printed piece of all of everybody's hard work. And I think the highlight for me was getting to work as like an actual news team. I think for a really long time we were on Zoom, we're on Slack, which is our communication platform online. And we weren't really in person. And a lot of, once we came back to school, and we were all in Lawrence together, was planning this project and making sure it was perfect. And, you know, this is printed. You can't go back and change something if it's spelled wrong like you can online. So actually doing layout, which when you were talking about Matthew, like we haven't had a printed paper in so long. So when we started to do this, it was like, well, none of us know how to do layout. So what are we gonna do? So it was good to have Matthew and just kind of see what it actually looks like in the real world. And when it's not just, you know, digital content. So I think getting to work as actual journalists and dig through archives and look at old photos and stuff like that and really piece it together as one whole piece rather than, you know, hitting post online, was a very eye-opening experience.
Okay, and I'll start, Stef, with you on this one, but you guys obviously learned a lot in this process. I would like each of you just to comment on one thing that you learned about Bob Dole that either amazed you or made you feel really good.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot in my interview with him, I was one of the only people, maybe the only person that actually got to speak with the senator throughout the process. And I called Rob after and was like, this just happened and I don't know, I need to sit down. And so I needed to like wait a day and absorb it all and like really take in what had just happened. Because when I told my parents we were doing this project, they were like, you're interviewing who? And I was like, Bob Dole. And I think I learned that, I guess this isn't something specifically about him as a person, but like what he's accomplished and what he's able to do, was that like he was just so persistent, and any of us could do that. We could work hard and make our way up into politics, into journalism, into anything that we really put our mind to. Because I think what really inspired me was Senator Dole talking about his time in the war and coming back wounded, and that was like at the beginning. And then he did all of the amazing things that he's done. So I guess like there's really no limit and not a great enough excuse to say that you can't do something. I think that's what I took away from it.
Yeah. Might not be as poetic, but I learned that Bob Dole's accomplished a lot and lived a very accomplished life, and he's much more famous than I thought he was going into it. Turns out it's not the KU building that makes him famous.
Would you say, Blake, that Bob Dole was an overachiever?
I mean, that's definitely one word for it.
I did not realize, I think the thing I took away most from learning about Bob Dole is I did not realize how much he helped create that is why I'm able to stand here today, why all of us are here today in like same rooms, Civil Rights Act, stuff like that. I mean, I just remember learning about that in a history book and actually being able to be on a project where I'm helping write the history in a way, I guess, or kind of reshaping it was just so crazy to think about. But yeah, I did not realize that he was a part of so many projects and acts that made society, or like kind of moved society along, I guess. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And I don't know why I didn't know that. Maybe I should have paid more attention in my U.S. history class. But yeah, it was just insane to figure out how much he truly was a part of during this time.
Now, I think all three of you at one point or another tonight have mentioned working in the archive. I'm curious, how important was that to you guys, and how was that experience different from other journalism projects you've done?
I loved getting to actually see the things hands-on and going down there. I mean, it's in the basement, which is a little creepy, but just as soon as Sarah turned on the lights, just aisles and aisles and aisles of stuff, all dedicated to one person. I was like, wow, I wish I had this. I mean, it was just so cool actually being able to, like, I remember Blake and Sarah opened up a drawer, and it was just all of the buttons from his campaigns. And it was really cool just getting to look at that and say, like, oh, someone from the 70s or 80s would have worn one of those. Just, again, kind of throwing you back a little bit to the time. Whereas now everything, I mean, technology has helped out a lot, but we don't get that real piece, that tangible piece of things where it's just looking at a screen. And yes, that can be helpful at times, but I think getting to actually see it, knowing that it is there in person, didn't really want to touch it because I felt like I would have broken a lot of stuff. But yeah, just getting that real, again, hands-on piece that you don't get digital, I think was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. To echo that, the archives are an incredibly big thing. It's a hoarder's paradise down there. But yeah, the archives were crucial to being able to do it. It's obviously much different than any other story you report. There's not someone you can call and be like, hey, like, tell me about Bob Dole's house career. and get the same answer and depth as you would be able to get going through the archives. With that being said, you can only look at like 10 boxes just because no one has all the time in the world to look at the thousands down there, except for your archives team. But yeah, I would say the archives were incredibly crucial in being able to put this together and have it be the quality reporting that it is.
Yeah, echoing that, I think they were vital to the success and it actually coming to fruition. The stories that we typically report on are, you know, student voice, administrator, professor, faculty member. Like Blake said, we didn't have anybody to call. So if we didn't have these archives, we wouldn't have been able to put this piece together. So a lot of the credit, I guess, is on us because we're the ones up here, but we would not have been able to do it without the archives at the Dole Institute. So I think that's very important to note.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I've got a couple more questions. Stef, we'll start with you on this one. How do you feel that having been involved in this project will benefit your career?
Oh gosh, I think tremendously. I think not a lot of students are given the opportunity to work on a project like this, especially this year when we're hopefully finally getting out of the pandemic. Getting to, you know, share a piece with the president and with someone of such a high profile as Bob Dole was very, again, daunting. So I think being able to put this on a resume and, you know, say, look, this is what I did. And again, it's not something you have to look up. You can like hold on to it and bring it to interviews or stuff like that, or keep it in your folders and stuff like that. I think will definitely be important and impactful going forward in my career, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the knowledge gained in it, you know, to echo that, it is obviously incredibly cool to be able to say, like, hey, look what I have. It's like, oh, there's the president's byline, like, flip 3 pages, and that's me. In Stef's case, it's her picture, and then the president's. But yeah, and then also as someone who wants to potentially look at going into politics, it gives you a lot of knowledge, being able to look at how things operated then versus now, and seeing all of that.
Yeah, along with the resume, like Stef said, I think this gave me a lot of other skills as well that I didn't know I had. Just really being able to improve my leadership skills a little bit, going out and actually like meeting people and getting to kind of talk with them. So kind of utilizing my resources a little bit was something that I hadn't really practiced as much as I had wanted to. Kind of also, I think the biggest thing is staying positive and looking on the bright side. This project was hard. It was. It tested a lot of us. I mean, it was not an easy thing. And Rob just kept telling us, just imagine, remember the final product. This is what we are working towards. And being able to see that final product, I think that's something I can definitely take into my careers when I am experiencing something that's as this big of a caliber. Just remembering the final product and just once you have your eyes on the prize, go for it type of thing. So along with the reporting skills I gained from this, just kind of like communication skills and other things as well, and the behind the scenes work of it too.
Okay, I have one final question, and then we'll open it up for audience questions. And I would tell anyone who is watching online that if you would like to submit a question, you can submit a question to dolequestions@ku.edu. That's dolequestions@ku.edu. Carly, we'll start with you, and this is, I guess it might be the most challenging question of the evening. You guys aren't historians, but you are journalists, and I'd like each of you to kind of define what you think Bob Dole's legacy is.
Goodness gracious.
Glad I'm not going first here.
Well, I think Bob Dole left a very, very big mark on politics and Kansas and the United States. He made pathways for a lot of people and was able to do things that, frankly, I don't think a lot of our generation would really want to do nowadays. I mean, going into a war, serving in the Senate and the House, that takes a lot of guts. So I think he was a very courageous man. I think that's one thing that definitely characterizes him. And also, at the same time, though, like Nathan's headline of his article, he's just like us. He was a KU student. He was walking around this campus at one point. And now there's a museum built after him. I think it shows, his legacy shows, if you work hard enough towards something, you can achieve it, but you have to put the work in. And I think that's something that will stick with me forever. If you have a dream, go for it, but you also have to put in the work in order to achieve that dream. And I guess, real quick, I just wanted to say, like, again, thank you to everyone who helped make this project possible as well. It meant the world to all of us.
Yeah, that's obviously a tough question. I think Bob Dole, he'll definitely live with a couple legacies. He's accomplished a lot, both in his run for president. I think he's the one of few people who's run for president and vice president. But he's certainly accomplished a lot, both the Senate Majority Leader, vice presidential nominee, presidential nominee. But I think he's also had a big impact on specifically Kansas politics. I know writing up the story I did after his cancer diagnosis, it was clear that he had a profound impact on, everyone currently serving in the federal delegation for Kansas. Even Sharice Davids talked about how his impact on her. But I think he'll definitely have an impact on Kansas. He's obviously touched a lot of people's lives, to the point where, 20 years after they served in the Senate, he and Joe Biden are obviously still very close. So yeah, I think he'll definitely be someone with a legacy, and a pretty big one at that.
So one of the first questions that I asked Senator Dole when I interviewed him was about the climate of politics and how he kind of recommended that college students who are just, kind of finding their place in politics and being able to vote in presidential and, other elections, stay engaged when it is so polarizing and divided. And he kind of turned that back on me and was like, that's a really good question. And I was like, okay. So I think, but he continued to press on that the Dole Institute was very bipartisan and encouraged students who wanted to learn more to come to the Dole Institute and to open themselves up to learning or, looking at stuff that they might not normally look at. So I kind of think that is his legacy, because I think we've talked about it a bit tonight. I think Carly hinted at it, that today's politics aren't like that, and the letter illustrates that from President Biden. But, to just not be so dividing, because that's not helping anybody. And I think to just take a step back and realize what the bigger picture is kind of sums up the entire project and his legacy all in one thing.
Okay. You guys didn't like that question, but you gave good answers. So we're going to open up for audience questions. So if you have a question, we have 2 students with mics. Raise your hand, and one of them will bring a mic by. Sorry, the mic's not working. Try the other one. No, that one's not working either. Is the on switch on, guys? Okay. Okay, there. I think one of them just came on.
Hello, hello.
There
Oh,
you
I
go. That works.
Hi. So while doing your research, is there any like one achievement or accomplishment that from Dole that surprised you?
That's a good question. I wish I had asked that one.
I don't know. I think it's just very empowering that all of his political accomplishments came after, you know, his injury and his time in the war. That kind of astounded me that it didn't happen like mid-term of his time in the House or something like that, as he has already started building his political career. So for him to kind of take that and then, you know, not let it hold him back in any capacity and just to be able to move on with his life and not let it be a hindrance to anything, I think that is an accomplishment within itself.
Yeah. One of the political accomplishments that I remember reading about in the archives was, it's not super well known, but he was involved in like a delegation that went over and partnered with President Lyndon B. Johnson at the time in order to send a lot of wheat to India to kind of alleviate the hunger crisis that was going on there. So I thought that was something that, you know, you don't read about in any history book on the 60s and 70s probably isn't going to include that, but it was still a very cool program that he was very instrumental in.
For me, I think I did not know that he ran for vice president with Ford, and then he also ran for president 3 times. I did not know that, but I think that shows his determination and his resilience to never give up, and even though it wasn't the outcome he was wanting or expecting, he still kind of went and did other things and still had an impact on others even after he retired. But yeah, I did not know that he ran for president that many times. So that was probably the most interesting part of my research I found.
Okay. I think there's a hand right here.
Memories and why I liked Senator Dole so much is what he did for people with disabilities. And I think that's one of the things that he's done for the country and for the world to help people with disabilities. All the regulations and so forth we have now for access to buildings and so forth.
Anybody want to comment on that? I mean, you guys, Stef, you mentioned it, but
Yeah, I think that was, I mean, like I said, he didn't let his injury impact his career whatsoever. And then to kind of take that and be somebody advocating for it and him having a disability himself, I thought that was very powerful and held a lot of weight. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that was very important and definitely a part of his legacy.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was cool researching and like looking at the life of the guy who was incredibly instrumental in the Americans with Disabilities Act, you know, something that's still incredibly prominent and always, you know, an issue on this campus, you know, just because, but it was, I agree with you as well, that was certainly a big part of his lasting legacy.
okay, do we have any other questions? Oh, we got a question right there.
So I'm curious, are there any politicians today that you think that you admire and that you would hold up in comparison to Bob Dole?
I think each politician has parts of Bob Dole. I think people can be highlighted in many ways from them, but I don't know if there's any politician that I resonate with or know a lot about that has the whole package anymore. But I do think there's definitely people who have his loyalty, people that have his work ethic, people that have his dedication, stuff like that. But I'm not sure if I know if anyone has the full package.
I would agree. I think he's definitely unique. Just because I know we've talked about him, I would say President Biden has parts, and they're very similar. So I would think that would be the closest person I could come up with.
Yeah, no one's coming to mind for me either. I think that social media definitely has influenced how polarizing and divided politics are, and everybody uses it. So I think that kind of puts everybody on the same playing field. But yeah, I think that was something that, I mean, nobody's perfect. We see that every single day, and in politics, it's very evident that, we're all very different people. So I don't think that there's anybody that I can think of that emulated what I took from my interview with him, that no matter where you stand or what side you're on, you can still root for the other person and be happy when they win. Because when I was interviewing, or before I interviewed him, Rob told me to watch some of his speeches, and I watched his speech after his 1996 campaign, and after he found out that he was not the elected candidate. And I was amazed that he was as, put together and positive and polite of his opposer, and how he carried himself, because that is not what we see in politics today. So it's very eye-opening to see how it's changed over the last 20 plus years, and that's not that much time for it to have gotten to where it is. So no one's coming to mind for me either.
I think also, real quick, it's hard for me to personally have an opinion because we did put so much work into this and we did so much research on Dole. We know so much about him now that I wouldn't feel right saying another person, because I haven't had the opportunity to dive into others as much as we did for Senator Dole. So.
Okay. Have time for a couple more questions.
Our online viewers, and her name is Marlis Schulda from Shawnee, Kansas. And I see somebody goes, oh, okay. It says, are there ways the Kansan and other campus partners can continue spreading the word about the Dole Institute and all that it offers through programs, speakers, events, and archives? I promise this came from an online person.
I think the special section will do a very good job of getting the word out. And our reporters and staff members that worked on the section will also be, transmitters of how important and impactful this place is. But I think having this section distributed across campus and it being in the journalism school and in other parts of campus will be a very good way to get the word out.
Yeah, I agree. I think the special section will do a lot around campus and getting people informed about what the Dole Institute does. I know there's a really great story on the last page about the Dole Institute. I want to say Jerome wrote that one, but I'm not sure. But, also, I know we've done coverage on different speakers who have showed up at the Dole Institute and talked about the Dole Institute. We cover, different things that happen here from time to time. So I think that relationship can always be strengthened, as is the case with a lot of different places around campus. And that's something that we certainly try to do as best as we can.
Yeah, I remember I came here for one of my classes because I had to write a report on a speech, and I listened to Sharice David's talk here my freshman year. And that was really interesting, and so I'm glad I got to kind of continue to work here, and I hope other organizations continue to do the same. I think no matter what major or school you're in, coming here every once in a while will definitely not hurt you by any means. There's always something you can learn here. I mean, whether it's looking around, sitting in on a talk, or an event like this, I think as long as we continue to spread the word, like how we have done with this special section, and highlight the prominence and importance of this place, I think hopefully other students will take advantage of this because it is pretty amazing.
Okay, we have time for one more question. If anybody has a question, raise your, okay, we got one right here.
If the senator was active today in a leadership role in the Senate, what do you think his perspective would be on what is occurring as we speak this evening?
Well, that's kind of what I talked to him about when I had the opportunity to speak with him. And I think it just goes back to recognizing that we don't all have the answers. And we're all different people and we all believe in different things. But I don't know. I think definitely the times have changed how politics work and how people act in positions of power. But I would, from the work that we've done and the research and speaking with him myself, I would think that his character would continue to shine through and that he wouldn't display the same type of polarizing nature that we see today.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of echoing off of that, I think you'd be hard-pressed to guess exactly what he would do. I agree that, everyone who knows Bob Dole knows that, or always says that, his character, no matter what, shine through. So I think he'd definitely be someone who brought a lot of principle and civility to the conversation today. What exactly he would think about everything going on, I'm not sure. I know, even between his House and Senate careers, some of his opinions evolved, so I think it'd be interesting to see how those evolved, over the next 20 years since he left the Senate to now. But I know there are different issues that you see relevance between what he was working on in the House and fought for a lot that's now going away. I know he commented on the 2020 election and, had some harsh words for people who wanted to claim that the election was stolen. So I know that he would definitely bring that character and principles that he'd governed and had his entire career to the conversation today.
Yeah, I think Dole would kind of be that bridge a little bit still today. I think he can resonate with both sides, both parties. So maybe we wouldn't be seeing as much of this polarization if he was still in the Senate, or at least he'd be trying to help others. I definitely think he would be fighting for what's right and fighting for the public good, which frankly I'm not sure that we're, personally in my opinion, that we're seeing right now. I think he would be trying to really recognize everything that's going on and trying to recognize what's best in the situation and not give up. And yeah, I mean, just kind of be that bridge for both sides and have a fair thing to say.
I've got one final question I want to pose to you guys as I'm sitting here and thinking about these wonderful answers that you're sharing with us tonight. I got to work with all of you on all of this, but I got to speak via Zoom with Gus, who wrote the piece on his so-called retirement. Do you guys know anybody in your lives? You know people who are retired. You know anybody in your lives who did as much as Bob Dole after they were supposedly retired?
No.
Nope.
Not at all. And I mean, he's still doing things. I mean, he's still, even though it's slowed down, obviously, I mean, I think he's going to keep working until he dies, frankly. That's just who he was. Yeah, there's not really anyone I can say who is battling cancer and is still working on things. It's extremely impressive.
Okay. Well, Steph, Blake, Carly, this has been tremendous. It's been educational and entertaining, and I would just want to thank all three of you for doing such a great job. So please join me in thanking them. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I know it can be daunting to go to in-person events under the circumstances, but we appreciate your support. And Barbara mentioned what I think will be a fascinating program next week with former Congressman and Secretary of Agriculture Dan Glickman. He has an extraordinary career, and we're going to get to hear him tell some fun stories from that. So hope you can join us next Thursday night, but thank you all for coming tonight, and enjoy the rest of your evening.